And we are live. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is the original Scary Ammi, and I'm here with Kim Langen from the Spirit of Math, all the way from Canada. And we're back for our regular Thursday night sessions where Kim and I talk about education under the pandemic, which is something I think no teacher and no university and I don't think anyone was prepared for it, certainly not mothers and teachers. So today we're discussing a topic which is of great interest to everybody, including myself, which is the online versus in-person classes. And I think, with online schooling taking place all over Pakistan right now, since the government has not allowed physical classes, there's a huge question mark in the minds of parents that is it even worth it? Should they be paying for online classes? Because education in Pakistan is private. So should we be paying the same fees that we pay for physical schooling? And is it really worth it? So Kim, I'm so glad we're discussing this because literally every time there's a bunch of moms together, that's all they want to talk about. How horrible online classes are, how expensive they are, and whether, we all kind of feel that they're not as effective or they're not as great, but we could be wrong. I don't know. So welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be back. And this is a major concern. We were all pushed into this, and even educators were pushing it, trying to figure this out. Like you said, no one was ready. I think a lot of people were kind of ready, but they didn't expect that they would actually have to use it. And that's the difference. Paying for it, I can understand why parents are a little upset. However, on the other hand, people who are providing this education, they need to be paid. They still have to pay for the teachers. They still have the facilities. At least this is what we are facing, is we still pay for our facilities, whether we're there or not. We still pay for our teachers. We still pay, and we have extra costs now for online. So it's, and we're trying really hard, and I know other people are too, trying really hard to do something good online. And it does take, it's just like I often talk about, even in the classroom, what's the responsibility of the teacher? What's the responsibility of the principal? And what's the responsibility of the learner? And what's the responsibility of a parent? Okay, so what has happened, I think, with the online is all of a sudden that's become a lot more important, those last two. And it's not that they weren't important before, but if you didn't take that responsibility as a learner very seriously before, online learning is going to be a huge challenge because you have to hold yourself accountable. The teacher cannot hold the same type of accountability. It's so difficult for them. So I think this is, when people are saying, is it the same level? No, we feel that it's so much better in person. It really is. You can see so much, so much more, you can assess better. And also you can hold the kids accountable. It's much easier for the teacher to hold them accountable. So what is happening now is that the kids have to hold themselves accountable, and the parents have to do a lot more than they had to do before. And so, and in the past, when it's in person, I think what's happened is some parents would just, here, this is for you to take care of, and we're not going to do anything about this ourselves. And if the kids don't learn, it's all your fault. And that, I mean, not that I like the online is what it is because we have to do it. And also it's very good for kids who wouldn't have that opportunity to get some of this online learning period and exposure to different types of thinking. I think there's some real value in it. You've got to find the value and make it valuable. So if you're just going to dump the kids in front of a screen and say, well, I want the teacher now to do everything they did in the classroom before, you're not going to get that. And you've got to be realistic. And so there are some skill sets you're going to need to teach to your kids that they're going to have to learn themselves and from you rather than just from the classroom. So let's, maybe I can start with that. Should I start with that? Or do you have a question you want to start? Okay. All right. So what I think, to start with, the skill sets that kids have to learn is, first of all, if a teacher asks them to do something, they really do mean it, and the kids have to follow up immediately and try and do something. So it's not wait until they check to make sure you've got it done. Just do it. Get that assignment done. Don't expect someone to have to follow up with you all the time. And so that's the first stage. The second thing is that take initiative and teach your kids how to take initiative, how to ask for questions. If they're not too sure about something, how to reach out. And for some kids, they don't even realize that they're having difficulty. So now as a parent, here are some other skills that you may not have realized that your kids didn't have. And you as a parent have to have those skills to determine what is it that the kids aren't realizing that they don't know or that they need to ask for. So we often say it's a bigger problem when you don't even know what you don't know. Okay, and I'll repeat that. It's a bigger problem when you don't know what you don't know.
Sometimes when you don't know a lot, you enter this thinking that you do know a lot. I don't know. Like, I remember when I was very well prepared for an exam, I realized at that time how much I didn't know. But when I wasn't that prepared for an exam, I suddenly felt like I knew. Like, I think the more you study a subject, the more humble you become, because the more you realize how much you don't know. So
Yeah.
there's something
Yeah,
that
there's
happens.
something there. There's an analogy that I heard once, and I hope I don't get this wrong, but it's basically like you know this much to begin with, and then as that circle grows, you know more and more and more, right? But what happens is you know what's inside that circle. You don't know what's outside that circle. But what
Yeah.
I feel is that that circumference of that circle, and this is, I'm going to take it to the next level, allows you to see what's on the outside. So as that circle grows, you're actually seeing more and more of the world because that circumference is allowing you to understand how much more there is. So you realize that you actually know a lot less than you thought, because before you only saw the circumference of a very small circle, and now all of a sudden, whoa. And that, I think, also is what is happening with parents, is that they're all of a sudden seeing into the classroom. They're seeing how their kids are learning. They're seeing the difficulties they didn't see before. They're seeing maybe the strengths of the teacher or the weaknesses or the challenges that they weren't aware of before. So all of a sudden, they're feeling like maybe this online learning is a lot worse than in person. It may not be as good, but it shouldn't be that much worse. It's maybe the fact that you're more aware and you're also learning so much about how to teach and also how your child learns. So there's so much more to this, and I think we have to be careful. It's not just about we're in the class where we're online. It's what are you learning as parents too? And that circle has grown, so that circumference now is very different for you, and you are much more aware of so much more. So I actually think there's a lot of good in this because it empowers parents. And it empowers you to really see. So when the kids go back in class, hopefully you're going to be questioning differently. And you're also not just going to be questioning the teachers in education, you're going to be questioning your children. What are they doing and how are they learning? And how can you be part of their learning? So it kind of changes the dynamics. And I'm hoping that it will help to raise standards everywhere in the world. It will help people to try and reach out a little bit more and understand there's different types of thinking. It's not just about knowledge. And so we can go from there. I'll answer some questions, and I'd like to talk about just the online learning and relationships as well, and how important those are just in learning itself. Okay.
So we have a question from Farooq Shafiq, who actually owns a very cute small school in Lahore called Thotsville. And Thotsville does both online schooling and like physical. So Farooq's question is, what can educators do to make the learning experience more engaging and effective for their students? And I know most of his students are very small, like 2, 3, 4 year olds. So is it even possible to make it engaging for that age?
All right. So some of the things that teachers feel this. I'm going to take a back step first. If your teachers are teachers who believe that education is just about knowledge building, they're going to have a real difficulty online because they're going to just try and get that information across. And that information, you're going to try and make sure do the kids get that information. If instead it's about the application of the information, then then you can do so much more, and you can do a lot online with young children. I've experimented myself too to see, what can we do? How much can we stretch? You can get kids still to, even all at once in the class, to follow you and do things. The sound is awful because, the internet, you get one kid and another kid because it doesn't travel as fast or at the same speed from all the different homes, but you still get that fun interaction. And this is what I was going to talk about afterwards. And so when you're online, get your teachers to really focus on how do you develop relationships. And when I see the classes where the kids have developed those relationships and they're giving feedback to each other, it's not just about the teacher to the kids, that there's an opportunity for the kids to speak with one another and to share their ideas and actually think about the ideas, then you're going to get some really cool stuff going on online. There's two issues. Number one, it is hard online. The second is you're working with younger children in that school, and even in person they're still egocentric. That's where their brains are. The brain development is at that age. So it's even difficult for them to listen and to give feedback anyway at that age. But you can still do it. Don't give up on that because they are listening to one another. Young children, the one thing that we found here in Canada is a lot of parents said, my kids were so much happier when they went back to nursery school. This is for young children. And the reason is because they're with their peers. We all need to be with our peers, even younger children, because they understand each other. They're speaking the same language, like in terms of understanding concepts. And so when they are speaking to each other, it's, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And all of a sudden they're building that relationship. And when kids have that relationship, they're going to be more open to learning and they're going to be more excited and happy. And when you're happy, anxiety goes down. And so when anxiety goes down, you actually have more breadth in your brain, in your short-term memory, to accept more information, which means that your long-term memory can also take it. So you've got to reduce that anxiety as much as possible so that you can absorb, so the kids can absorb. And the way you do that, get relationships, get jokes going, get some fun happening, and then you integrate the learning. And then you celebrate, have ways to celebrate for little kids too. That's super important. Just because you're online doesn't mean you can't do it. There's so many ways online to, even in chats, to have a little award that's given to a child. You just put that in the chat. Here's a little award for you. And that's a recognition. I was reminded very strongly recently in an interview we were having for an employee, and the man speaking said, when we asked what kind of environment would you like, and he basically said an environment where someone listens to me. And I thought, fundamentally everyone wants to be heard. So even small children. And when you're online, it's not about the teacher to the kids. It is about the kids being heard, the teacher hearing it, and doing something with it. Kids want to know they're being heard and what they're saying is valuable. They're important enough and what they are saying is important enough. So use it. And remember that's much more important online because they don't see the same body language. And so you have to do more of that. And then you'll see that things are much better. Kids will be much happier and they'll be much more engaged. And also assessment for teachers is much easier because kids are going to volunteer the answers without even realize they're doing it.
Yeah. That's true. So Rachel brings up a question about, online. why, if since online teaching is not as effective as in-person teaching, then why is are most courses around the world priced the same? And this is actually a very pertinent question for Pakistan, because here we've been paying for private school education. So initially, the government did give us like a 20% discount, but now they're not giving it. But a lot of parents felt that even the 20% at the time it was there wasn't enough, because they said, schools aren't paying electricity bills and teachers aren't spending fuel coming to the school. So even the 20%, they wanted to be 50, but now even the 20 doesn't exist. So parents basically did two things. Either they just stopped paying the fees for months, months, and months, basically taking their kid out because it was cheaper to take them out and pay the readmission than it was to pay every month, or they just pay. Like that was basically it. So why do parents feel that teachers, the teachers and schools, etc., should be paid less? And do you feel there's a fair demand on the part of parents?
Well, I know the situation in Pakistan is quite different. And I just want to take it from the two perspectives here, because I think the question more is, what value are you getting for what you are buying? And if you feel like I'm hearing the perceived value here is so much less, that's an issue. So I would be recommending to the schools, give something to parents so that they feel there's something of value. That's the issue. If they are not getting a value, then they're going to need to look at themselves very closely. And what are you doing? You should be ensuring that you're giving good quality education, whether it's online or in person. So what do you need to do that's different? Start thinking outside the box. And if you start thinking outside the box, then you know what? You may discover some really good things that you can maybe use for the future. But it shouldn't be just, okay, now we're here in our class, especially for a full day school. There should be a lot of things happening. And get your teachers thinking about this. It shouldn't be just the leaders either. Everybody in education should be thinking about this. And how can you improve it? How can you take advantage of this opportunity that we are all online? And can there be other things that you can do that we can expose kids to? I don't know. I'm quite passionate about this because I'm really feeling that there's a lot of excuses, and rather than looking for opportunity. Don't be part of the problem, be part of problem solving and see what the possibilities are. So if you're feeling that as a parent, I can understand that there could be some frustration. So I guess I'm just saying to schools, up your levels a bit, do something else. Make sure, because I understand, and the other side, which like I was talking about, you've got the school, like the parents feeling this way, you've got the schools going, oh my goodness, I still have all these fees I have to pay for. I still have, sure, we're not using electricity, but really that wasn't most of the costs. Most of the costs are in many other ways. And they don't want to have to lay off a whole bunch of people. They don't want to have to lay off all of their cleaners and so on. They still probably are on the pay. I would hope they're on the payroll if they're getting paid the same, that people are kept employed. But they do have to take care and make sure that it's not just about them getting the money for themselves. It's about them keeping people employed so they can feed themselves and keep existing. So you may want to find out as parents, what's happening there, rather than just saying you should be decreasing. So get some insight. But educators, try and figure out some other things you can do. I know we've increased our number of homework help times. We don't ask for extra help, even though we're an after school, just once a week for an hour and a half. It's not about just coming to the hour and a half. It's about your learning throughout. We're trying to get some other things going for some social networking for kids, some other speaker series for kids, things that we wouldn't have done otherwise, but so that the parents are getting greater value, or even talking to people in our community, trying to see if parents can get discounts from the different areas. All I'm saying is get creative, and and see what your teachers can do that will add a whole different level of education. And there must be a way to do it. We've just got to figure it out. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, we have an anonymous comment from a school owner. And he's saying, "Hi, Kim, thank you so much for doing this. It's always great to hear from you. My question is that I feel the biggest issue with online education is that the student is suddenly in control. So we had students come to class and then suddenly announce that their internet isn't working and they would conveniently leave the class. And obviously, there's not much we can do. We've also had students mark themselves as anonymous and send insulting messages to teachers. Suddenly, the teacher is no longer in control. The principal is no longer in control. The school is no longer in control. It is the student. I want to know that have you faced such issues with students becoming bullies or trying to take control, and how have you managed them?
Okay, so first of all, the bullies is something slightly different where kids are saying inappropriate things. That has to be addressed immediately in front of everyone because other kids want to hear that you're addressing it and you're not going to accept it. You have to talk to the parents and you just have to deal with it and take it very seriously and make sure that everyone understands this is not acceptable. And you get parents involved in both. If you're scared to do that, you need to get over it because it is very important conversations that need to happen. And like I said, again, you deal with a certain amount of it, not the whole thing in front of others, but you do stop it. If other kids are seeing it happen, you have to show that you've got to stop it. In terms of kids leaving, this comes back to that responsibility of the learner. And there is another discussion, and you may want to have some discussions with parents and have parent nights and parent sessions where you discuss what is the responsibility of a learner. It's not that the school has control over learning, and so even take that language away because you shouldn't have control. You are the facilitators, and you're there to educate and be a big part of the education of the children. You're not the whole part of education, and because there's so much that kids can learn after school, and also because kids are at home, they are in a school at their home. That's their little bubble right now. They're in school. You don't have control of that, and you shouldn't necessarily have control. The parents need to take responsibility. The kids need to take responsibility. So it's that shift and not feeling the control. Now, the other thing I want to say, if you are the owner of the school, you may want to have some professional development time too with your teachers around this idea of control, because I've always noticed that when I walk into a class and a teacher is really controlling, and there's a lot of indicators of control, they have all the rules on the board, they've got everything is aligned so exactly this happens, and the kids see the full agenda, and the teacher's not allowing for a lot of discussion or things to go off a little bit. That's control, and a teacher will do that if they are challenged. If they don't have the skill sets themselves to be able to deal with a learning situation that can maybe move around a little bit and then go somewhere and then go like this. So in other words, what they do is go like this because they're trying to control more. And that to me says there's other deeper problems. And that could be, there could be some other discussions, and that could be a very interesting discussion we have just with school owners as a separate even call in. Let's call in about what are some of the things and why. So when I work with the teachers and we deal with that whole concept, oftentimes they start to realize, oh, there are other skills I don't have. Like, how do you listen to kids? How do you bring them back? How do you have those tough conversations during class time? How do I allow them to go out and have those discussions without losing control? And it's not about control. It is about developing a learning environment where the kids want to be in it, want to listen, and the teacher is facilitating. And that's when you get the kids just taking off. And it's super exciting when you see classes like that. It's absolutely amazing. But that really more is about concerns from the teachers that come very deep, and they have some conflicts that are going on inside. They want to do a good job. They really do. They just perhaps need some other training, and they also haven't necessarily seen this work, and so they don't know even what that looks like. So they're really challenged. And even parents may be challenged because they don't know how it works from a good situation from their own background. And that's also something interesting, even for online learning. Maybe it's good for parents to have some discussions about, what did you do? Why is it working so well or better for you than it is for me? And maybe I need to change some things or set up something a little different. And it could be just some basic routines that will help. Okay. So.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions about, how schools have constantly moved, at least in Pakistan and abroad, I think, from online to physical, back to online, back to physical. What do you think? Like in Pakistan, it's really simple. The government has said no physical. So there's no physical. But I guess around the world, it's more of a school-to-school decision, from what I've understood. And even in Pakistan, some schools are choosing to just not open for another year. Because I think, so what is better? Is it better to constantly reevaluate week to week and be like, okay, this week is online, this week, or like the Lahore American School in Pakistan, that is just going to be online all the way through. Like they're not really reevaluating.
It's very disruptive, changing back and forth. And if you have a system, in order to be able to do that, maybe there's a purpose to come back in class. So if you feel it's safe for everyone, the kids and the adults teaching the kids, that's a huge priority for educators right now. I know the kids don't have the same effects as adults do, and we have to think about the adults too who are with the kids. But if there is a purpose, like if you're saying, okay, we think it's safe for this amount of time, make sure that you're very thoughtful about what are you going to do during that in-person class time. Take advantage of that. And as a teacher and as a school, have a strategy. So, hey, we want to be able to see that they're actually writing well, that they're, what are the basic skill sets that are very difficult to assess when they're online. Get that list from your teachers. And also as principals, you should be in each of these classes watching so that you can write your own list of things that you're seeing that the teachers are having difficulties with, and also that you can't really, what can you not assess when kids are online that you can assess when they're in person? So when they come in person, you make sure you focus in with that and you get that aligned right away. Okay, so going back and forth, it could be of value, and and then when the kids go back online, again, they're prepared to go online. So you give them everything before they go online. You make sure they understand this is what we're going to focus on when you're online, kids. And you don't have to keep that just with the adults. Kids like to know what the purpose is, what they're doing, and how you're going to do it. We want to really, I'd love to get back in person. Ontario has just shut down everything as of midnight last night. And in-person classes are not allowed until maybe February, but our numbers are going way up. That new variant is here in Ontario, and so people are very, very concerned, and our hospitals are reaching limits where they just don't know what to do. And I guess the issue too is in the ICU units, there's
a shortage of ventilators. It's not a good situation.
Yeah, and they also are kept there much longer than a regular patient in ICU. Much longer. Those beds for one person can be up to 6 months, 3 months to 6 months. Someone told me the other day. I thought, wow. So there's the issue. I also wanted to talk very quickly. I just got this, and that is, it just came to my house yesterday. and it has a really good article on the psychological first aid kit. And I thought this would be really nice to speak to today, because part of online learning, and the reason why we have it, is because of the stress and people worried. And that's really the foundation. And so they're quite concerned, because in the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported in August that symptoms of anxiety had tripled and depression symptoms had quadrupled among a group of 5,470 adults, as compared with a survey sample from 2019. Everybody knows that all of the healthcare services, or mental health services, have been stretched globally. They have a couple of what they're calling a set of simple measures known as psychological first aid, or mental health first aid. And I thought this is really important. It's important for parents and teachers to know. So I'm just going to read a couple just very quickly. And they're saying this can help people, help family, friends, and others in the community who experience psychological distress from pandemic fatigue, COVID convalescence, or the loss of a friend or relative. And that fatigue has kicked in really strong. And so one of the first things they said is a physical first aider tries to stabilize the patient. With psychological first aid, a key goal is to restore a person's sense of safety. And I think that's important for kids. If someone is terrified that ordinary and mental health building activities, such as going outside, are fraught with danger, for example, the responder might mention that air currents and sunlight reduce the risk of becoming ill, offering reassurance that being outdoors during a pandemic could be less hazardous than remaining isolated inside. What the responder does not say is equally important. When dealing with a person suffering from a panic attack because of a recent trauma, the first aider must discourage conversation about the details of the event to avoid reinforcing the memory. So, and there's other to-do lists. It's just something for parents to look out for and maybe look up, and it is the psychological first aider. And psychological first aid is a key term that maybe we haven't heard of before, and it's something that's becoming much more important. So keep that in mind, especially with this online, with kids online, because it is stressful, it is hard. It's even just stressful, the fact that they have to be there. We got a call from one parent who has 3 kids at home, and they haven't been with any other kids since last March. And the father said, this is in Canada, he said, I'm really distressed. I don't know what to do. And my first suggestion is create a bubble with some other kids. The kids just doing it online is not enough. They actually have to physically be with other kids their own age. Get them to have that mental decrease. He is saying, this father was saying, my children just aren't able to learn anymore. Like, he's just finding that they're just saturated. They just can't learn. They're just sort of sitting there and they're not learning. That interaction is critical. So get them out. The other thing is, make sure you do have that physical activity. They need a break, kids need a break, and they need to have fun while they're having that break and laughing. Again, remember, your brain will be open to more if you are happy and less anxiety. So watch out for that right now. I think this online learning is more than just, are you learning? It is, are you open? Are you capable of learning right now? And I'm saying that right now because we are at almost a turning point, I feel, in terms of learning for children. It is basically a year for many areas of the world, and it's tough. So make sure you've got that bubble for your kids, please.
Yeah. So one parent from Ontario is saying, why did Spirit of Math decide to shut down schools even before there was an order? And the comments actually remind me of what's happening in Pakistan. So the same thing is happening with like LAS and other schools deciding to stay online regardless of when the order comes in. When you as an administrator or the head of a program is making such decisions, how do you decide what is the right time to shut?
Oh, that's so difficult. We were looking at, there's several things. We had some teachers and some administrators be in contact with a positive person, and then and other times they tested positive, and it was just okay. Now we have to take this campus off, offline or online, and then we can take this, and then they were going back, and you may not have realized as parents of what was happening in pockets around everywhere. And so it was so disruptive. What do we give? And then there was a scramble. The kids miss things that, and to have that consistency was critical. It was also the safety of our teachers. And then when they weren't able to teach in person, trying to find another person, it's tough finding people. We only have so many people we can access to, and many of our teachers are already teaching at that night. So to replace those teachers, it's either we just hire someone who doesn't necessarily have the experience, or it's just sort of filling in, and so you don't get a proper class, you don't get the proper it's not just about one class, it's about having that understanding of your class from week to week. So if we're going to keep bringing in substitute teachers, number one, it's really hard to find. Number two, we do so much training before they even start with Spirit of Math. We couldn't possibly do that. So to keep that some sort of standard and some sort of consistency to us was key for our kids. And we didn't feel that we could do that because there was just up and down all over the place. And this was much easier for everyone, and the consistency was there for the kids too.
No, I can completely understand. I personally also believe, like, that's just my personal opinion, that it's better for the parents and the students to know in advance that, okay, we're online for the next 3 months. A lot of parents who work find it so disruptive, this week is online, next week, like, I feel that's a lot harder and impossible to plan for. Okay, so we have an interesting question from Abira about the attention span of kids on online class, especially for maths. So what does research show? How long can a child pay attention in an online class? So like Sharan's entire school is only 1 hour, 10 minutes because he's 4. But I know older kids are being made to sit like 5, 6 hours in front of the laptop doing online schooling. But that seems impossible, but there are children who are doing it. So what is like a good length of time in which you can actually focus online?
Okay, so I'm just a good length of time to focus in. Well, okay, first of all, a lot of people think mathematics is just about the teacher telling the kids what to do and then you do the work. There's actually a lot of mathematics where there should be discussion happening with the kids. Even online, they should be able to discuss. If the teachers are not breaking them up into small groups, teachers need to learn how to do that. And kids also need to learn how to go into the smaller groups to discuss. They can't discuss very well when there's too many kids in one group, even in an in-person class. You can't do that. This is why, like in Spirit of Math, we find that a group of 4 in person works the best. You don't, like a group of 3, you have 2 that usually join up and 1 that's on their own. Group of 4, you tend to get much more discussion. You can go deeper, and the ideas that come out are just that many more, and that understanding therefore improves tremendously. When we went online, what we found was having a group of 4 actually wasn't quite enough. A group of 5 was actually more ideal. If it is a group of 4, it is a group of 4, but you kind of needed that extra person just to get that discussion going, because it's a little harder to have a discussion online. For younger children, we haven't done it for younger children as much because we're still testing it in some classes, but we're finding that skill set is so difficult for them to be able to do it without an adult around to help them get that discussion going and to get proper meaning, and for them to actually be able to take that and then put it on paper. And that's something that you forget when children are young, is that just because you've told them there on that screen or somewhere, that, oh, now it's done and they can put it on paper. Actually, that's a skill set, taking what's up there and even, translating it to the on paper. So that's the really tough stuff when you're teaching younger children. But that interaction, breakout rooms, use breakout rooms and get the teachers to experiment. Don't be scared to experiment. Kids also are learning how to use technology when you do that. So even have that time, as it's not just for doing maths or whatever it is, but just say to the kids, you're going to learn how to do breakout rooms. And in this breakout room, you're going to discuss this and you're going to come back with something that your students, that they're supposed to, have. The key is that kids have to know what they're responsible for, and they have to be responsible for something. Sometimes all teachers do is they go and discuss something, and then they come back and, okay, if they know that there's some sort of responsibility, you assign people to be leaders of those groups, those discussion groups, for a couple of, at least, 3 or 4 classes, that one person takes that leadership role. Then they learn, okay, they have to get the kids to work. They have to do, all these things will happen. And by the way, it takes about 4 or 5 times the kids to do this in these small groups for them to form those relationships, to have the trust to be able to speak freely and learn from one another. So don't think that if you've tried it once, twice, or even 3 times and it's not working as well as you wanted it to, well, you haven't given it enough try, or there hasn't been a proper focus, or there hasn't been an accountability. So there's a lot to think about when you do that, but you've got to do it, and it's crazy important for kids. I just wanted to say one thing very quickly, and that is that, yes, there is a comment about teachers helping children one-on-one for Spirit of Math. They are setting up extra homework help times. All our teachers are. And your child has access to that time. And oftentimes it's only 1 or 2 children during that time. And the teachers are I know there's some parents are really taking advantage of this time with our teachers, and they're able to get a lot done very quickly in a one-to-one. And for your day schools there, even in Pakistan, they may want to think about this, to have time once a week with individual students as part of their plan, so that they can dig down with that child for even 45 minutes. That's all you would probably need, or half an hour. Let's get this done, let's get this done, and let's get this done. And you're having trouble with this, let's deal with that right now. And then they can get that done, and then go back to the classroom situation. But you can assign things to kids and then plan one-on-ones. Okay, so yes, we are not allowed bubbles in Ontario right now. And yeah, I'm sorry. Like you to address if teachers can get paid to do 30-minute one-on-one session weekly with each child. Well, this is what our extra help is for, is to ensure, because our teachers are actually paid on salary. They're not paid hourly unless it's just online something. But if you are in person and you went online, they're paid salary, so that they're there for they're there to help you. So that's something else. So just make sure that they realize they should be able to help your child. Okay.
Okay. So we have a comment from Uzma Latif, Kids Latif, that I want to bring up. She's saying that even though there is greater pressure on parents to keep up with and monitor the child's studies, she thinks it's unfair to pin the entire responsibility on just the school or teachers alone to cover the obvious shortfalls. Because, and like she's saying that, if parents are cribbing about paying for online classes, they should think about the predicament if there weren't online classes. Teachers are here for most part full-time moms and homemakers too. So while that is all true, Kim, do you feel that this entire online scenario, which was kind of thrusted upon us and not chosen by choice, is actually affecting the parent-teacher relationship, which is the hallmark for a good education for your child? So parents are upset at schools as to why schools are doing online classes and giving so much homework and expecting scanning and uploading, and why aren't they opening up physically? And then so parents are resentful at schools, and schools feel parents aren't supporting them enough and are cribbing about things like rent and fees and not understanding. And then teachers are also getting in the midst of it because the poor teacher has a family at home and no domestic help. So, do you feel it is affecting it? And what are the long term and short term, disadvantages of this happening?
Um, I think for those families who were struggling before, the long-term consequences are pretty significant, and because they're just not going to have the same education, they're not getting it. Um, there's, it's frustrating for everyone right now, and everyone is stressed, and everyone is feeling like you're taking advantage. They don't want to feel like they're taking advantage of, but at the same time, people are trying to keep going. People are trying to do their best, and I think right now, what I would be saying is, how can you support one another and not just say, "What am I getting from you?" And it's really, if that can happen, if you can turn it around, so it's not fair. I should be, I, I'm entitled to a lot more, and in both ways. Everybody give what you can and understand and try and work with people as opposed to just working on their own. And it's tough. I can't answer all those questions. I really can't. I don't know the situation of everybody that's happening out there, but I do know that there are some very concerning things happening with children right now and with youth. Extremely concerning. We're working with some people here in Toronto, and it's called YACE. They work with marginalized kids, and it's about 70 kids here in Toronto. And parents just don't have the education or the abilities, or for whatever reason, to help the kids. And so this organization started many years ago, and getting them into basketball and sports and so on. And we've actually partnered with them this year to teach Spirit of Math for them and to get them in. And it's really sad to see their levels. It's really sad. And it's not, and this is like, they missed, a third of their school last year in person. But wow, what a different, like these kids, they need to go up so many levels. Some basics aren't there. So this was there before. There were some serious issues before in education. And it's always those kids who can't afford to go. It's always those, because their parents don't have the ability, for whatever reason, they don't have the ability to help the kids. This online and not being able to be in person has huge effects. If we talk globally, I'm working with someone out of Uganda, and she's saying the kids is a massively big issue. We're going to be actually releasing the Genius magazine, and as part of it was an interview with her, and again, we're trying to help in any way we can there too, because kids are out of school. What are they doing? The young girls, 14-year-olds, are getting pregnant, or they're being married off at a very young age so that they can help to support their families because they're not going to school anymore. So what's their value of these young girls? Well, get married. And then there's value because now you can work, or you can, so this is a massive issue. And schooling it's not just what knowledge are you getting, what information. Is actually a structure that helps our world move forward, because it gives structure to kids. It gives them meaning, it gives them a focus, and it gives them something that they can work towards. And it also tells adults that this education is important to drive our future, to solve our problems, to work together. So when we've got online and we're not even, so many kids aren't able to even access the online, there's a massive problem right now. And I think in the future, it's what is that? And we often think, well, underdeveloped countries, these poor people, it won't have that much effect, but actually it's a massive effect. They have a huge effect in this world. I'm sorry I went down sort of another line, But I just think, maybe what we could be thinking about too is, okay, we're paying all this amount. Is there any way another child can get free education with my amount that I'm paying? Is it going to be that much more for you as a school to educate another child at the same time and maybe give some access? So that at least parents are feeling that something more is happening. And that's what I'm talking about thinking outside the box. What can we do with this online? Is there a way to sort of magnify this learning? Maybe the children aren't getting quite as much. It's going to be a big catch up when we get back. Even in Canada, I'm hearing all our campus directors and our principals saying that when they're interviewing the kids, they're nowhere close to the level that they used to be when they came into Spirit of Math in other years. And this is for new kids coming into Spirit of Math. And they're wondering, what do we do? Because they haven't learned that much over the last year and a half. That is reality. It's happening, and it's important that we help wherever we can. All of us help. And that if you're educators, you're doing what you can. You're showing the parents this is what we're doing. Don't just keep it to yourself. Tell them, communicate. And for parents, you communicate too and say, this is what I'm doing, so that you understand what else can we do to help you, and then carry forth from there. We should be able to help people a lot and help each other out. So sorry, I just want to get out of this.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm feeling cheated somehow. Let's work together to get something more powerful happening. Okay.
Okay, so Kim, we have another question about what makes online learning more effective. So one parent is saying, should teachers mandate cameras are on throughout the class for better engagement? I know that some teachers are now saying that mute your, they take control, they mute everybody, they only let one child speak. At Richardson, for example, they're saying that children should be in school uniform while they're sitting for an online class. And some parents find that odd, but at HSN, they're follow the uniform. So literally on Fridays, I have my kids sitting with turbans and ashkans. So, in terms of, but obviously schools are experimenting. But is there any research or studies into, what makes, we've understood that having your child lie down in bed and take his online class is probably not a great idea. But what works?
Okay, so you know what? I love that. Good for Aegison for saying get your uniforms on. If that's what they had before, then yes, because what it's doing is it's saying it's just like when you go to work, you dress properly. And then it says, I'm a professional. And it actually tells your brain, I should act as a professional. You take things much more seriously. And the same for the kids. If this is what they did before, they dressed properly, they should be doing the same. All right. So it's important that they understand that those actually are, those are tricks of the trade for high performing and very highly successful people, is they understand how it affects their brain and how they work. So I'm way to go. So I just like to say that that's kind of cool because it sets them as I'm in school. Now, the other thing, videos, yes, for sure. They should all have videos. In fact, we mandate and for Spirit of Math, and it drives me crazy when I go into a class and they see that the kids don't have their videos on. They should, because education is about communication just as much as it's about knowledge. And you can't communicate as well when it's just you're hearing or you're not participating. And you're right, kids are, they're disengaged. Well, we need to see as teachers that you are engaged. And even everybody putting up their hand, we have the ability to see everybody put up their hand. Do you have the answer? Give me, put up the answer with your fingers or hold up something. We're doing cursive writing, hold it up. But we can't tell kids are even engaged if we don't have the videos on. It is critical kids have videos on. I know that there is a security concern about what's going on behind the scenes. You can put backgrounds up. And if the teacher then needs to see something on paper, you take it off a very quick stance, you show it to the camera what you're doing, then you put the background on again. Kids have learned how to do that, even as young as grade 1 kids can do that. So it's a new skill that they'll learn, But videos is critical, and it's critical that teachers have their videos on. Kids need to see their faces. There's a lot of intelligence that happens. Our eyes pick up a lot and understand humans so much better by looking at the face. And it's important kids learn that. So, thanks
Yeah.
to okay. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for, okay, we have time for one comment and one question. So Denise is saying, this is like specifically the spirit of math, that maybe you could have a month where students can sign up for extra help.
There should be extra help each week, Denise. So you can address that with your campus and campus director and your teacher. They should actually have extra help sessions each week. So not just once a month, they should be doing it every week. Okay, so you may want to just address that, or maybe you just didn't know about it. So we'll make sure that communication is a little stronger to parents. Okay, thank you.
So Nagin is saying, and I think, what we don't realize is this 1 year, there have also been children who've become school-going age. Like Nagin's child, or like one of her moderators, Fazia, her daughter was supposed to start school last year, and she didn't because of COVID. And then they kept waiting, and they're still waiting. So for children who were supposed to start school, what, like children with 3 or 4, like what should the parents do? Is it okay for the child's first ever learning experience to be online? Should they just, is there only option homeschooling? Like what do they do?
You know what? If I was a parent right now, I'd be starting something for my kids and maybe some other kids. You probably know other parents who have kids the same age as your kids. Well, not probably, you do. And start something yourself, like a homeschooling sort of thing, so the kids learn how to work with online. It's not a bad thing for them to learn when they're young, so it just becomes very natural to them. And you'll probably find that they'll communicate in a way that we hadn't even thought about, because young children just automatically do things without worrying about whether it's right or wrong. They just think this is natural. I would start, even you can be a teacher, you can start teaching things yourself. It's important when they're young that they learn things when they are young. There's a lot kids can learn. That's actually such a critical time. Don't put off education because it's online. Do not do that. But you can get a small group and get that going. So so that has to happen. So I'm just reading this. I don't think it's fair to say we just drop off kids off to class and take zero responsibility for what our kids learn. I'm not talking about all parents. That was not the intent at all. And online is extremely challenging. And you do if you have to, during the whole duration of the class, you may want to have some time just figuring out, how do I teach my child how to do online, and then gradually take yourself out so that you don't feel that you need to be there the whole time. It's a skill set for your child too, to learn how to do that without their parent being there. So think about this. How do you start being there completely with them, and then gradually giving them more and more responsibility? And then we've got a lot of success with kids who don't have parents there, and a lot of success. Some kids will find it easier than other kids, so you'll need to find out what is it specifically that your child needs help with. And maybe this could be another session that we talk about, is how do you integrate that, and how do you offload some of that responsibility, and what kind of expectations can you have? That may be a good session to have another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, we're getting
so many emotional comments, because I think this is actually a very emotional topic. Like when the pandemic began, none of us thought it was going to last for as long as it has, and our children's lives are changed forever. So I think everybody just feels like they're getting the short end. The teachers, the parents, the children, everybody is. But I think
and we're out of energy. Everyone's out of energy. Everyone's put in so much, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting just being in a situation where it is high stress all the time. And it is high stress because you're always having to watch out. You're always having to sort of look over your shoulder, make sure that you're doing the right thing. And then to have the kids have to try and learn. You have parents at home having to work at home while the kids are trying to learn at the same time. You've got, I mean, there's frustrations. They're not able to get out and be with other kids like they were before. So they don't have that interaction, and which helps your brain, relax a little bit more. It's just having changes. We tend to, as humans, if we see a problem, we will make it bigger unless we have something else that comes in and allows us to look at it from a different perspective. When you're not out there and in society with other people, these things become bigger in our minds, and it's much more stressful. There's so much going on right now, and it's really hard. So maybe another time we can even talk about some of those things and some of the things that kids are having to deal with right now, because they don't have that, like, it's all the same sort of thing in a very narrow band. And it's healthy for us to have the changes and the differences and the exposure to different people and different ideas and so on. So when we go like this, we all go a little bonkers, and we all go a little one-sided too in our ideas. And that's very dangerous too. So there's a lot going on right now, a lot globally, and people. I think people are doing an incredible job overall, absolutely incredible. Parents have been incredible, and I think educators are doing what they can, and they're trying so hard. Everybody is trying hard, and I think, different people are meeting their breaking point at different times. And I think, we're at a year basically, and people are going like, okay, we're getting vaccinations, but there's still a lot of stress, and people are juggling so many things, never mind just trying to keep healthy and not get that bug, whatever it is. So, and I think also the unknowns is very stressful to people. When people don't understand, we don't know what's going on, even for kids, it's very stressful. And that's what everyone has to remember. So hang in there, work with each other, see what the possibilities are right now, see what you can do for each other, and maybe for other kids who wouldn't have had this opportunity before. And maybe there's some opportunities here that everyone can find in this. There are opportunities, and there's some wonderful things for kids that can happen right now. So let's find it, and let's celebrate those, and then maybe hold on to those for the future, and know that as human race that we've learned a lot. Okay, I know I have to go. I have people calling me saying, where are you? I'm supposed to be somewhere else, but and I just really feel this is important, that parents know this. Everyone's trying hard. And you have to also remember that the capabilities of different people are different.
Yeah.
And very few people have the capability to be able to juggle this,
Yeah.
especially teachers. Like it's really tough. So, and parents too. It's really tough. But we're all in it together. And just find the golden nuggets, find those golden things out there, and hold on to them, because there's a lot of things that we can learn and move forward with. Okay, sorry about this, and to keep you a little longer. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you for all your comments. Okay, all right, take care, everybody. Okay, bye.